No, there is nothing to finish. It is just that I said what I said, that these letters of Beethoven's and of Brahms, I wanted to read them. So that was it. That will be the end of the meeting.
All right, please go ahead, read them. Read them out to us and we can discuss them. You can even project them if you want. If you have on your computer, you can project and read. We will see and hear. It's even better.
Wait a minute. Okay, this is Beethoven's letter. Okay, I will try share screen.
My sound wasn't working at first. Now it's working.
Hi, Rod.
Hi.
No.
So, can you read it?
Yeah, we can see. I can see at least.
Okay. This was an extract from Beethoven's letter to Bettina von Arnim. And
you can
he
increase
said,
a bit if you can.
What? Increase?
Yeah.
I can make it bigger.
Yeah, bigger.
Oh, God.
It's 2 hours.
It's Macintosh, yes, difficult to manipulate.
No, it's not difficult.
It's really difficult.
No. Come on.
Every time we try, we always find something else, but not that.
Okay, I can't do it. Anyway.
Okay, so, okay, you read it out like this.
Now, Beethoven and Goethe, they were sort of meeting. And Beethoven was quite a character. So he was of the opinion that all men are equal. And when he walked with Goethe, then they met a group of people from a higher hierarchy. And Beethoven naturally didn't make place for them. So he went straight heading at them. Even though he was not a king and he was not whatever, a knight and whatnot, but he would not give place. And Beethoven and Goethe got quite annoyed with him. Because he said, you can't do that, you have to show respect to these people. Anyway, before they met, he sent these words to Goethe. I want to talk to Goethe about it, if he would understand me. The melody is the sensuous life of poetry. Does not the sensuous feeling of a poem become the sensuous feeling of the melody? Does one not feel in the song of the mignon, by the melody, the whole sensual mood? And does not this mood stimulate new creations? Here the spirit wants to widen itself to boundless universality. Here the spirit wants to widen itself to boundless universality. I find this a key thing of his compositions, where all joins with all to a nest of emotions and which otherwise would go unnoticed. That is harmony. That is expressing itself in my symphonies. The melting of a variety of forms that flow along in a bed to their destination. One feels that the eternal, infinite, never fully fathomable is present in all that spirit, and albeit I sense to succeed in my oeuvre, I feel a constant hunger, which just seemed exhausted with the last beat of the drum, which I wedged as my enjoyment of my musical conviction into the listener. As a child, I want to start again. Speak to Goethe about me. Tell him to listen to my symphonies. He will prove me right that music is the only unbodily entry into a world of knowledge, which includes the human, but that he cannot include. That includes the human, but that he cannot include. We were listening to the Symphony of Beethoven, which you can then see on YouTube. And it is the only one which represents for me that kind of interpretation which reflects that what Beethoven is saying. In the classical music, in the Western classical music, we have gone very far away from these qualities. And Furtwängler has realized it. It was in 1943, and it is the Symphony number 7, second movement. And it is, for me, it is only the second movement. What happens before and what happens after, it is a different thing. It needs the rhythm of the spirit to enchase music in its essentiality. And
in chase.
In case. Or
no, it should be enhanced.
Okay. Okay, it is my personal faulty translation of the German text. So you can take it in the other sense. You know what I mean. You know what he wants to mean. It procures intuition, inspiration of heavenly sciences. We have talked about it last time, that I wanted to make it a science of expression. We were speaking about it with Werner, who is a psychologist and who knows about these things. And we had a kind of discussion on this topic. How can it be that all musicians see things the same way when they don't see the same way at present? How can it be that if I express something and the others express something, we understand each other? And he speaks, I just noticed it now, that he speaks of it, of heavenly sciences. And what the spirit by it feels is the embodiment of knowledge. Even though the spirits live from her, it is another thing to fathom her with the spirit. The spirits live from her, from the music. It is another thing to fathom her with the spirit. The more the soul draws food from her, her sensual food, the more the spirit becomes ripe to agree with her cheerfully. And this is another beautiful thing which we have also come across, that it must be like this. And it is described, also Sri Aurobindo describes it many times. But only few come to that. So many are married because of love, but love does not manifest, even though they all engage in love. To offer oneself to these inscrutable laws would make it possible to tame and guide the own spirit as to make them manifest. This is the isolating principle of art. To become dissolved by them, to become dissolved by them is the self-offering to the divine. That in peace his might may govern the frenzy of... I hear my reflection of the sound.
Yeah.
Could we do something about it?
There is a way to do it. I want to tell. If you don't use this, we will have the echo. But you can always mute the microphone.
Okay.
Oh, not you, but not who is speaking, but who is not speaking. If we mute the microphone, we will not have echo and we will have a good sound. To mute the microphone, it's in the left corner. In the left low corner, there is this. Yeah, if you click on it, it will be muted. And then when you speak, you unmute.
Okay.
No, it's still here.
So, Ladislav, do you know the year of that quotation?
I can find it out. I don't know. I have here the German. I found it in a book on music, and if you want, I will look for it and I can give it to you.
Well,
Because
yeah, I was just reading a text of Hegel's was written in 1820, and he uses the terminology that he uses is the same, and the idea of science that Hegel was formulating was, and the idea of rationalism that he was formulating was based upon the knowledge of universals in which particulars exist. For him, science and rationality means that. It means knowing the universal in the particular.
yeah, this is what this expression is about. That you can see the universals in the particulars. Otherwise, it will not work.
Yeah, and for them, at least for Hegel, this was a very elevated state of consciousness. It wasn't just an abstraction. So I think we can see in this writing more clearly even that it's beyond the mind.
Yes, it is that what he says, that the spirit then can identify with that in these particulars, because the particular becomes the universal. It opens up to the universal. It becomes the essence. And that's where this linking is possible. Otherwise, it will not be possible. Okay, I just finished this one. I started to become dissolved by them is the self-offering to the divine. So if you have all this mess of these particulars and of this division, and you can dissolve them. You can dissolve them by this offering to the one. So they merge. It is like this pyramid, the point of the pyramid, and that gathers the whole being. And when you aspire and when you use these techniques of psychic power, then they start gathering. It is like some kind of beam or rod on which you lean on, and on which all these different parts which are partaking in the creativity, they finally find a common factor, a common concentration. That in peace his might may govern the frenzy of untamed forces. Now it is the peace, it is the silence, where this might of the spirit can govern the frenzy of untamed forces that go just haywire. in usual expressivity. And by that, give to the fantasy the highest effectiveness. Thus, art represents all the time the God, and its human relation is religion. What we by it acquire is from God, God's intuition, which sets the aim to man's capacities that he reaches. So this one was Beethoven's, a part of his letter to this Bettina von Arnim.
Yeah, actually, I remember his letters also, because I visited his place of where he lived in Bonn, you know, and I read these letters. And what I was surprised was that he is using language which is very close to our language of integral yoga. Is it not
Don't tell
so?
me.
It's really fantastic, as if he is writing with Sri Aurobindo words, you know. Self-offering to the divine. He's using all the time. It's translated there, though you translate it like this, but it is also there. And I was surprised to see such a yogic being, yogic. He has a yogic perception of the world from the beginning, when he was 16 or something. He had this kind of vision, and he describes these meditations, this descent of light, you know. You would not believe it, that was the musician, you know.
No, it is very important that you mention it, Vladimir, because if you go on the internet, you find these extracts of letters, and you find also a kind of weird negation of them. Because many people, they don't want to be it true. So they will say that they are invented.
Wow.
But I am very...
It's a in museum of his birth. It is his...
Yeah, that's what is important.
Right.
That we know that he saw it this way and that it was actually... And he was a good writer.
Yes. And very beautiful handwriting. I never saw such beautiful handwriting. His script was so as art, you know, every word, and beautifully written. It's handwritten letters. It's not just, you know, printed or...
Okay, this one was Beethoven's letter. Now I want to read you Brahms. And Brahms, it is not a letter, but it is an account of somebody who has been with him, and he recollects what he was saying. Mr. Brahms, I asked, how do you enter in contact with the all-powerful? Most of humanity finds him to be very much far away. And Brahms answers, this is a good question, answers Brahms. It does not happen by the force of will, nor by the conscious thought, which is the product of physicality, and dies with the body. It is only possible by the power of the soul, by the real self that survives death in its body. If they are not lit by the spirit, these forces are at rest for the waking consciousness. Jesus tells us that God is spirit, and he said, me and my Father are one. John 10:30. To recognize, like Beethoven, that we are one with the Creator is a marvelous, inspiring experience. Very few people come to that knowledge. That is why there are only so few composers and creating spirits on all levels of human endeavor. I think about all these things before I start to compose. This is the first step. When I feel the urge, I direct myself towards my Creator and pose him these three most important questions for life in this world. From where, why, where to? Just after I feel vibrations which wholly pervade me, they are the spirit that pours light on the inner forces of the soul, And in this state of thrill, I see clearly in what was darkness in my usual state of being. Then I feel capable, like Beethoven, to be inspired from above. But most of all, in such moments, I become aware of the meaning of the greatest epiphany of Jesus. Me and my Father are one. After I have formulated my wish and decision in relation to what I want, to become inspired to compose something durable which will lift and help humanity to progress, these vibrations adapt the form of specific pictures of the spirit. At once, ideas flow down on me direct from God. I don't see in front of my eyes only specific themes, but also the right form in which it is clad, the harmonies and orchestration. When in this rare, right-inspired mood, bar after bar, the entire piece is disclosed, as it was the case when Tartini composed his Devil's Thrill Sonata. Devil's Thrill Sonata is a thing that Tartini has composed in dream. He has dreamt it actually. And waking up, he started to write down everything. By the way, for those who don't know Tartini, he was one of the great teachers of violin in the Western world. He was the first great teacher. He had, there are letters to students. In Venice, there was a poverty, and there were a lot of abandoned girls. And there was a convent, and they took up these girls, and they taught them how to play musical instruments so they can survive. So they built an orchestra, and these girls were playing in the church. And they survived like this. They earned their living. By the way, at that time, even Bach's sons had to sing in church. They had to get up very early in the morning and sing the Vespers and all these things throughout the day. And for their work, they got their education. So this was the case. There were not schools like nowadays. And Tartini wrote to one of those girls, and he gave her a kind of class over Skype. Over Skype at that time were letters. so he wrote, he could not hear what she was playing, but eventually he would visit her, I believe. So this about Tartini, and this Devil Thrill, it is a very difficult piece for the violin. But there are different voices. It is just one violin playing, but you hear 2-3 voices at the same time. And there is a thrill. A thrill is a thing which you just alterate 2 notes at a very high speed. And this was amazing. And it has entered as one of the very difficult pieces into the repertoire of every violinist. So naturally, I had to play it, and I was playing it and things like that. But this about Tartini's experience of composing. I continue. In order to achieve such things, I need to be in a half trance, a state in which the conscious thought is for the time being without master. Fantastic. So for the one who makes the interpretation, it must be, I believe, also like that you enter a kind of trance where you get in touch with something that you don't know what it is, and you have no the right to think anything, because you would just violate that. This is what is inspiration about. A state in which the conscious thought, blah, blah, I told it, he said, a state in which the conscious thought is for the time being without master, where the subconscious is the master. As by this way, as a part of the all-powerful, inspiration takes place. But I have to be aware not to lose consciousness, so I don't lose the thoughts. So it is a kind of difficult state because you have to be on this side to write these notes down. On the other side, you have to be on that side to listen to what is coming down. Indian musicians don't have such problems because they don't have a score. They don't have to write a score. Vladimir?
Yeah, no, this is something unexpected at the end, especially very. So basically, that is what we were discussing, that to become a pure instrument of the music instead of being the enjoyer of the music, and through the enjoyment of the music to interfere with the play and interpret the sound because you enjoy already what you play. So we made a distinction between one way of playing when you're a pure instrument, and you become kind of in the state of trance. You stay in the state of trance. You are not totally even aware of what is going on, but partially you have to control yourself, as he says. That's why I continue thinking. But the music is kind of bypassing. It is going from the heights of the superconscious to the inconscient, as if in front of me, controlling my thoughts, I am somehow, only because I have to be there conscious as an instrument, as a body, I will have to delegate my consciousness to the music away from myself, so to say. There is a split. And this is something very interesting. What I saw in this subconscious as a master is actually, he wants to say that he is not totally conscious as a master. Yeah, this subconscious was used by Freud and by others, not in terms of Sri Aurobindo, as subconscious as below, as something away, away from consciousness. But I saw in it exactly this, that the master, the player, has to be really deeper subconscious, whereas superconscious has to be music. They have to reconnect. Maybe he didn't even mean this in the letter, but I kind of was surprised to see this. Yes,
Yeah, the term.
yes, Bindu.
Yeah, I'm so happy to read this, because during my creative periods of creative learning systems, I don't know if it's the same, but I did go into a very different state when an idea would just emerge to me as if I was sleeping and I had just woken up and an idea emerged, but I don't know where this idea came from. It was as if the idea had just poured into my mind and I was unaware of it, and I was pouring it out. And once I had poured out the entire idea or the concept or the way I had worked, I felt I was in a trance, because after I had written it, after I had made it, when I look back from a third person and I look back at the systems created, I'm not sure whether I created it.
Right.
I don't know whether it makes any sense, but that's how I experienced it completely.
It makes totally sense to me. By the way, what you say, Sri Aurobindo also speaks about this. If you feel that you didn't make it, or that you are free from what has happened to you, then this is the right state, basically. This is how things are done. But if you feel that you are responsible for everything, for this and that and here and that, that's your creation, of course. But if it comes in this way, in this sense, he is proposing here to remove one's own creativity or influence on the process of playing music, or
By the way,
stepping back.
By the way, Beethoven once has heard a piece played by a violinist of his, and he asked the violinist asked Beethoven, "What's a maestro?" Is it all right with you? Do you agree on that? And Beethoven said, you know, just play, go and play. It's not written for you. It's written for generations which will come much later.
Mm.
And I have not seen those generations. And Furtwängler was the only one whom I can say, okay, I see something there which is inspired by this state. Only when Furtwängler does this interpretation, he is in the middle of the war. It is 1943. It is the worst thing. There was Hitler invading Russia and all the other countries, and it was a huge massacre in the world. And he sits right in Berlin, and he plays this for all these monsters. Now imagine that. And he was a pure being that after the war they started accusing him that he was collaborating with the system, and he refused to go away from Germany.
Same with Heidegger. Yeah.
And I know exactly that it is not like that, because he had a helper, a man called von Kube, who analyzed the works of Beethoven. And this man, they cut him out of Germany. They wanted that he leaves. So, and there was this whole thinking of the Germans just before the war, also in the 19th century, which was very much advanced, very, very spiritual, with Goethe and all these people. So there was a culture which you could see reflected also in the old generation. I have given classes to people who were 8 years old 20 years ago. And I have seen still their culture, which they were holding fresh in their memories. They could recite Goethe, and it was so dear to them. Okay, so this one was what I wanted to end with, and with the question that this new interpretation, which has not happened until now, that it starts gaining ground, and that we come to a kind of scientific approach to expression. Not scientific on behalf of how much speed, with what speed you should play what and things like that, but on a psychological, what he mentioned, what Beethoven mentioned before. Thank you very much, and we will talk about it in late January, February in Auroville.
Beautiful. All right. So Werner, we come to you. Would you like to take over and make projection of your presentation, if you want, on the screen?
Sure.
Could you remove your presentation? It's very easy. You just share screen. There is a green button below. You click on it, and if you want to, I will stop him. Yeah, I will share my screen now, and I will stop my screen sharing. So now you have it. You can go to share screen. And the first will be the window there, which will tell you that you can share your desktop, or you can go to any specific page. But truly speaking, desktop would be the best, the easiest. Yeah, now it is coming. Right. Now you can control things on you.
So I'll try. That's my this. Oh yeah, you know. Okay. Let me just get my.